There's a new miniature game out there that has really captured my imagination. It's called Idols of Torment. It's dark, it's terrifying, and it's really cool. Idols of Torment is a game that takes place in a unique setting called the Echo, a realm where the collapsed ruins of heaven and hell have collided together. In these ruins, the anguished mortals wander, their souls hunted by the servants of hungry gods known as the Idols. Idols of Torment is the first game envisioned and created by Black Magic Craft, and is the brainchild of Jeremy's dark imagination. A few months ago, he shared with me some of the concept art, and I started getting all kinds of ideas right away. I'm really into history and art and architecture, and I felt like the aesthetic of Idols of Torment was inviting me to play in a sandbox of new and interesting, creative ideas that I've never touched before. I made a lot of things over the years that fit in with a medieval or sci-fi vibe, but I've never really dipped into the classical era, the time of the ancient Greeks and Romans, or the revival of that aesthetic in the Renaissance. So, like a kid in a candy store, I started thinking of all the cool things I could put on an Idols of Torment table. So, I'm going to make a full table. The rules call for a table 2 feet by 3 feet, which I'll base on some 2-inch insulation foam. So first and foremost, I'm going to have an aqueduct. Aqueducts are watercourses designed to bring water from one point to another using gravity. They're most commonly associated with the Romans, but they appear in many ancient cultures and are still used today. The earliest known aqueduct was the Assyrian aqueduct at Jirwan, built by King Sennacherib around 700 BCE to bring water to the splendid gardens in Nineveh. Some scholars now believe that the fabled Hanging Gardens of Babylon were actually in fact these gardens in Nineveh. Interesting. Speaking of things that are legendary and green, you've just been segued into today's sponsor, Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a nutritional drink designed to help optimize your health by improving your energy levels, focus, and digestive health. They sent me some to try, and I was quite impressed. It mixes up well, and it actually tastes really good. I've had other nutritional drinks before that taste, how do I say this? Earthy, whereas Athletic Greens actually tastes really good. It's got kind of like a mild fruity taste. Tastes most like, I guess, pineapple to me. With a little kid at home, I need all the energy that I can get, and Athletic Greens is filled with stuff to help optimize your energy levels, including all of this stuff here. I've started drinking it in the mornings, and normally I'm not good at remembering to take vitamins or probiotics or any other supplement like that, but because I actually enjoyed the taste, I've been drinking it and I feel great. So check the link below to get the AG1 Immunity Bundle that comes with a 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 travel packs free with your first purchase. You can't put a price tag on your own health, guys, so get AG1. Alright, let's get back to the video. What I really wanted from my aqueduct was that Roman look, with crumbling arches soaring above the table. I built one using 2-inch insulation foam, cutting out the arches on my hot wire cutter. I decided that the battlefield should have the shape of a river valley, with the aqueduct crossing at an oblique angle. This was a great opportunity to use the foam scraps I've built up over the course of my last few projects, and so I blocked in some nice high hills. I took a trip to Value Village for some pieces to use as statues, and I found some awesome ones. Check out this bust. It's apparently a souvenir from Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. This is going to make a perfect ruined statue. To make it truly a half-sunk and shattered visage whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, I need it to be broken. And I'm hoping that if I tap it with a hammer, it'll break in a cool way and not just totally shatter. Wow. That worked perfectly. I love the angle. When this is added to the piece, it'll be something that really speaks of the collapse of an empire of might and beauty, something that says, "Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair." Hell yeah. I have a bunch of these ionic columns that are used for wedding cakes left over from a previous project. These will form the ruins that the action can take place around. We'll come back to those later. I started adding a bunch of sets of stairs coming down from the high hill. This is inspired a little bit by the stairs at the Acropolis that are built into the hill. I made this little broken causeway diving board thing here because I thought a miniature would look cool at the end of it. Sometimes that's all the reason you need. I also decided to use this angel statue overlooking the riverbed. I think it looks epic and majestic, and the angel's gaze draws the player's eye into the center of the table. I broke the angel off the base it came on, rebasing it on a simple square plinth. In using this angel figure, no disrespect is intended to any religion. I just thought it was a cool aesthetic that added an interesting element to my piece of art. Also, the rules in Idols of Torment allow you to use magical abilities to sometimes move the terrain pieces around, so this statue will also double as a bridge if you play your cards right. I continue to lay down some pathways on the hillside by the aqueduct using some very rough cuts of foam. And as someone who doesn't like to waste things, it's nice to not throw away my scraps and to find a good use for them here. So it's time to carve a masonry pattern into the aqueduct using a knife and a dull pencil. I always underestimate how long this type of thing will take, but the results are more than worth it in my opinion. With the pattern cut, I pressed some jagged stones into the foam to make some interesting texture. I used some pieces of decorative lumber trim and some foam to make an architrave for my ruins. With just this simple addition, you can begin to picture the splendid building this once was. It's always important to keep in mind the practicalities of the games you play when crafting. In this case, I spaced the columns 32mm apart, to make sure that the idol miniatures can fit through the spaces in between the columns. Speaking of miniatures, Idols of Torment is a miniatures agnostic game, meaning you can use whatever miniatures you want to represent the different classes and factions of idols. Personally, I've been looking for some cool demon miniatures for a while, so I used the digital STL files that Jeremy commissioned for the game. There are 8 different flavors of idols to choose from, and my favorite fantasy and horror tropes are all represented. There are ghosts, beastmen, unholy abominations, mushroom monsters, more unholy abominations, whatever this is. Some of the minis are honestly so gnarly, I don't even want to show them because they'll give me nightmares. I went with the Insatiate, a faction of cyclopean winged vampire types that I thought were really cool. I printed these on my Saturn II printer, which was sent to me to try out by Elegoo, and I'm really stoked with the quality of the prints, and the files as well. I was a little nervous about the small details on the idol models being fragile because I've had issues with 3D printed minis being brittle in the past, but I came to an important realization in the process that I'll now share with you. 3D printed resin minis are not like plastic minis in one respect. You can't leave them unpainted on the shelf for a while. Ultraviolet light, including sunlight, will cure the resin further and make it more brittle, so by priming the miniatures right after they've been printed and cleaned, I can lock in some of the flexibility of the resin and have a durable model with a little bit of flexibility. I painted these up with acrylic mini paints, then used a wash of oil paint to get a grim and gritty look. Hell yeah. The game also comes with a plastic sprue with 8 miniatures called the Lost, which represent the mortal souls wandering the echo. These move around randomly, and the teams of idols not only fight each other, but are also competing to see who can reap the souls of the most lost and drink their sweet spirit nectar or whatever. I absolutely love that. My brother doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be playing against me as the Strife. They're these vicious beastmen guys here. Also really cool looking models. I know I already said this, but I'm really stoked to have all these alternate demon models. I'm not a huge fan of the official Warhammer demons, and there don't seem to be too many other options on the market. Demons are a super versatile thing, not only for war games, but also for role-playing games, so I think they're an awesome thing to have in your collection. Let's finish the table so we can get these guys on there. For some of these flat pieces, I cut pieces of Christmas Village display mat that I bought a few years ago at a craft store. The cobble texture gives a suggestion that there was once a vast temple complex here or something, that's since begun to decay and slip into the riverbed. With the rough shapes in place, let's start to fill some of these gaps. I'm using Sculptamold, a paper fiber and plaster blend that's really handy. It sticks on everything, fills gaps well, and it's fairly inexpensive and lightweight compared to epoxy putties and other alternatives. After it sets up a little bit, it can be smoothed with wet fingers, and when it's even more dry, I score some horizontal lines into it with a wire brush to simulate a rock texture. Without too much effort, I can use this stuff to transform a pile of foam scraps into a pretty convincing landscape. Looks pretty bloody good so far, I think. The back of my piece has all these little gaps in it from using the foam scraps. I found it quite satisfying to plug those up. Nice. So using some white gesso, I paint the remaining pieces of exposed foam. The gesso will seal the foam with a nice matte finish that has a tooth to it for all the paint to adhere easily. Covering this pink color is my favorite part of any project. It's all starting to come together. Having filled in the back, I sand it smooth in my garage and then apply a coat of black house paint. It's not perfect, but it's loads less distracting than before. By the way, this is the lighting in my garage when I turn on the heat gun. A nice flicker. I sliced up one of the columns to make a fallen column and a rubble pile bit of scatter terrain. That worked pretty well, I think. Now let's see if we can make this white landscape look a bit more like real stone. Using some water and paint, I mix up some watery acrylic washes and then apply spots of brown and gray all over. It looks pretty bad. I'm going to trust the process though and keep going. Well, there's a little bit of color there, but I want it darker. So I mixed up a dark gray wash and apply it all over everything, this time hitting the buildings too. We're getting a lot closer here. Very fun. I apply a series of grey washes to the ruins and scatter bits, trying to give them a grounded, weathered appearance. I used acrylic washes because of the low odor and dry time. By using my heat gun on its lowest setting, I help the washes settle into the cracks and dry even faster. For the giant statue head, I added a few gessoed blocks to hold it at a consistent angle, and then apply some thin washes to it as well. I didn't bother painting over the ivory color, which I quite liked already, but I did add some varnish to it. I must have been channeling Jeremy's dark creative energy, because in a burst of inspiration I decided to add a pop of color in the form of bloody tears running down its face. By the way, for my money, Bloody Tears from Castlevania is the best video game song of all time. I'm not going to play it for copyright issues, but let me know if you agree or if there's a better video game song I'm missing out on. With those final details put in, this table is ready for battle. I'm super stoked with this. It's grim, it's bleak, it's monochrome, but without being too dark. There's one last thing that would make this look really cool. Dry ice. Hell yeah. I'm really stoked with how this one turned out, guys. Let me know what you thought of this project. If you want to support the channel, there will be a link for my Patreon page down in the description box below. If you guys are interested in Idols of Torment, go check out their Kickstarter page. The pledge manager is opening soon. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Eric's Hobby Workshop.